Now let's talk about an area inside the brain called the diencephalon. The diencephalon is this area outlined in purple, and it's deep within the brain, below the corpus callosum and below the cerebral cortex. It's not part of the midbrain, it's still part of the cerebrum, but it is made up of both white and gray matter. So we're going to talk about the main structures of this. We're not going to talk about all of these structures, but we are going to talk about most of them. So here's the whole brain from the mid-sagittal section. We're looking at the medial side. We're looking toward the lateral. So the diencephalon is between the hemispheres, between the two hemispheres of the brain and the deepest part of the cerebrum. The epithalamus is this little area back here, which includes this gland called the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin. We talked about this very briefly when we did the endocrine system, but so I do want you to definitely be able to identify it now that we're in the brain. Melatonin is the hormone that regulates your circadian rhythms. Those are the rhythms of getting up in the morning and going to bed at night. Those are your circadian rhythms. They also change your body temperature throughout the day at a really regular way. So those are your circadian rhythms, all controlled by melatonin, which is released by the pineal gland, which is part of the epithalamus. That's back here. This is the pineal gland. Next up is the thalamus, which is this area here. It's actually 12 thalamic nuclei. And you remember that nuclei are groups of cell bodies within the central nervous system. So these are cell bodies that are going to coordinate all of the conscious senses except smell. Okay, so all of the other senses, including the sense of touch, are going to pass through this area before they go to a cortex. So vision, hearing, taste, balance, touch, all of those things are going to pass through different nuclei within the thalamus and then go to the various cortices. So there are a lot of synapses here where those connections happen. Okay, that's the thalamus. And within the thalamus, there's this little area right here called the interthalamic adhesion, which is where the two sides of the thalamus connect together. So epithalamus on top of the thalamus. Why on top if it's clearly behind? Well, think of the brain from the point of view of a four-legged animal, a quadruped, in which case the epithalamus is now on top. All right, and under the thalamus, we have the next part of the diencephalon, which is the hypothalamus. And you remember the hypothalamus from the endocrine system. This is the master control of your hormones. And you remember we had a bunch of hormones, including thyroid hormone, where the hypothalamus sent a signal to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland released those hormones into the body. So all of the metabolism of the body temperature, your control of your emotional behavior, food and water intake, all of these are going to be controlled first by the hypothalamus that sends signals to the pituitary gland that then releases those hormones into the body. That's the hypothalamus, and up next we're going to talk about some other structures, the midbrain and the brain stem right here.